Hey everyone, this is George Couros. We are coming to you live from all over the world because that's how we do this. And it is season 2 of iMOOC, episode 2. I am super pumped to have Sarah Thomas here with us today. It's interesting because I actually never first found out about Sarah Thomas on Twitter. I just had a zillion people tell me how awesome she is, and then I found her, and I still hear about her all the time. So we're going to have a conversation about her and some of the work that she's doing, and then we're going to talk about part 1 of the book. And we're pretty excited. We already have, I think, 70 viewers popped in already. So I'll be looking at the iMOOC Twitter stream, and we're going to take some of your questions as we go through the process. So please share the stuff that you're learning along. Make sure you connect with Sarah and Katie. And I'll turn it over to my co-host, Katie Martin. And so she'll introduce herself. And then we're going to turn over conversation with Sarah. So Katie, please take over.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Katie Martin. I'm the Director of Professional Learning at the University of San Diego's Mobile Technology Learning Center. Excited to be here again with you tonight. Looking forward to a great conversation. And we have Sarah with us tonight, and she's going to tell us a little bit about her work and what she's doing and dig into the book with us. So Sarah, tell us what you're up to.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Katie, and thank you, George. Very, very happy to be here today with the iMOOC community. So my name is Sarah Thomas, and I am a regional technology coordinator in Maryland. I've been an educator for about 12 years. I'm also the founder of EduMatch, which is a global network of educators connecting, learning, sharing together over all forms of social media, building that strong relationship so that we can have those conversations that we truly, truly learn from. And in addition, I am a doctoral candidate, hopefully for not much longer, studying international education. So very happy to be here.
I was telling Sarah before we got on, I was feeling horrible because she has pinned to the top of her Twitter that she's working on her dissertation. So I'm like, oh my God, I'm so taking away time from her right now. So
no.
Really appreciate you actually spending that time with us. Sarah, can I ask you first, we want to get into the EduMatch stuff, and she actually, in the YouTube description, you'll see a link to the EduMatch website and actually the book that she did with a group of people. But before, Sarah, can you tell us a little bit about your work in education right now, some of the things that you're doing, some of the things that you're seeing, and kind of what your role is, and maybe even how you see innovation in your role?
Absolutely. Well, right now I am working as a regional tech coordinator. So pretty much what that means is that I'm working with the district, but there's about 11 or 12 schools that I work directly with. And I mean, it's great to see all of the wonderful things that are going on in the district in terms of innovation and in terms of people thinking outside the box. And in addition, I really feel blessed to be connected to the EduMatch family, because just hearing about different things that educators are doing, when we share our stories, then we all learn from one another. So I feel like I'm a fly on the wall a lot of times when we have these conversations on Voxer, on Twitter, on YouTube Live, and just learning and soaking up the great knowledge that the educators are sharing between one another, so that we are all growing stronger together as an educational community.
But you actually started EduMatch, correct?
Yes, I did.
And so tell us why did you start it, and what's been its impact on you first, and then on other people that have been a part of that?
Absolutely. Well, EduMatch started back in September 2014. I was on my couch on a Friday night procrastinating, had a bunch of stuff to do, but I was on Voxer speaking with one of my good friends, Rafron's Davis, and she made a comment about gamification in math. And I had been speaking with my cousin, who was a former New York City math teacher, and he was telling me about this whole gamification process that he did probably a month earlier. So I said, hey, Rafron, you and my cousin should talk. And I'm wondering if there's something on Twitter that will, kind of hook educators up along similar areas of interest so that they can, kind of collaborate and grow from one another. Because, there's Twitter chats, there's stuff like that. But is there anything that will say, hey, this person, you need to meet this person and talk and see what comes from that? So I looked and I didn't see anything. So I went ahead and started up the EduMatch handle, tweeted out the idea, someone from Australia tweeted back immediately and said, I'll give it a go. So got some information from him and started tweeting out about him over the course of like 24 hours. And I checked back with him at the end of the day, and he said that it was great that he connected with so many different people. So I was just like, okay, this might actually be something. So when I told her front, she was just like, you know, you need a website. And I was just like, okay. So the website was made. And then after that, as people continue to join EduMatch, then just bringing themselves, bringing their ideas, their passions, things of that nature, we've just grown from there. So everyone who comes in just leaves a piece of themselves, and that's how it's kind of grown to this network.
I love that, because, you know, we talk a lot about innovation starts with something small, an idea. It doesn't have to be, you know, the idea to change the world. And that's, you know, you noticed a problem, you noticed you had an idea, you start something, and you just kind of get the ball rolling. And I know Dave Burgess talks about that snowball, just an idea, and you kind of build momentum. And now you guys have a book too. Can you tell us a little bit about the book? And
absolutely, this is it right here. So this is EduMatch Snapshot in Education 2016. So this is just kind of like a moonshot thinking type idea. So many of us had said in the Voxer group that we wanted to one day be, you know, write a book. So the opportunity came up. I was just kind of looking at different things to, you know, to get the EduMatch trademark going, and an ebook was an example of that. So things started to kind of click in my head, and I was just like, okay, guys, you know, you want to try something crazy? Let's do this. And so so people signed up to submit a chapter, which was kind of like their snapshot in education of 2016. So this book actually was released in December, talking about like kind of a year in review. And there were 20 educators from all over the United States, and hopefully next time we'll go international. We were about to be international, but a couple people had to drop out for different reasons. But we're hoping to bring it back. Maybe we'll have someone from Canada, or
you just need one Canadian to make it international, Sarah.
Exactly, just one Canadian will make it international. But definitely just looking forward to 2017, the snapshot for 2017. We're looking for authors for that as well. So, but I mean, the book was truly a fantastic journey. Really thankful to everyone who got involved, whether it was submitting content or peer reviewing chapters. It just worked out in the end. So.
So what are some of the takeaways that you would hope people would get from, or what are the big takeaways in education from all those snapshots around the country?
Oh, there were so many great things that people talked about, but I know that one theme of the book that kept on kind of recurring was empowerment. So whether it was from the student side or the teacher side, or, you know, the educator side, and just knowing that we have so much power individually and collectively. So just using that power and just not being afraid to try new things. And if they don't work out, they don't work out, and we learn, and we can always iterate and try again with things that we know now. And so that was pretty much a metaphor for life. This whole book journey was a process.
So it's actually so I'm trying to keep on the conversation and make sure that I'm paying attention to who's tweeting. And David Carruthers actually asked, "Can I be that Canadian?"
Oh, absolutely.
So now it's international. So you got that one Canadian. So he's an awesome guy, doing some really good stuff in London, Ontario. So, and it sounds like London, so it sounds like it's the UK, but it's not close enough.
I hear you.
Some great stuff. So like when you talk about EduMatch, one of the things that, and please clarify and if this makes sense, but you're really getting people to connect, not necessarily with like around people, but around like ideas of things that they're interested in. Is that correct?
Yeah, pretty much. The way that it works, or the way that it started, I should say, and we keep this piece going. There's a Google form, so people fill out information about themselves. So so now, since we have like a database with like hundreds of people in it, then we're able to just kind of I'm able to go in, and different hashtags or words that might connect with what someone else said, I'm able to tag those people in that post. And I was actually just playing around with Awesome Table on Friday, and put like a searchable type Awesome Table database on the EduMatch website right now, so people would be able to go in there and click and try to find, different interests. And it's still in beta mode. There's still a couple of bugs I'm cleaning up, but it's still functional. So you'd be able to go onto edumatch.org right now and look at the databases page and click on the awesome table and look by different interest and see
everything's in beta mode though. Everything.
Yes. We're living in beta. I heard someone else say that before, but yeah, it's so true.
If you wait till it's done, it'll never get done.
Right.
Exactly.
The reason I asked that, I think, is a really important thing that people are listening and hear this is that a lot of times when people come up to me and they'll start on social media and they'll start on Twitter. One of the first questions I get most of the time is, who should I follow? And what I say is, like, don't look for necessarily people to follow. Look for like hashtags. Because if you follow me because you're interested in innovation, you could have a night of puppy dog tweets, right? But if you're looking at a hashtag, it actually helps you. I think it helps you find people with similar interest areas, and I really like that because you're focusing more on the idea instead of just specific people that you should connect with, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Well, and sometimes people feel like they're so alone and no one thinks like I do or no one's in my role. And so that hashtag or those ideas help people connect. And I love that that's what EduMatch does.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, like the Twitter chats, are all based around those hashtags. So definitely jumping on that momentum and just kind of using it to connect people kind of directly one-on-one, like if you're looking for collaborators and stuff like that. And speaking of that, there's like another project that we just kind of launched, I want to say the 17th, whenever that was, 2 weeks ago, which is Designing with Passion. So this was inspired by the Google Innovator Academy. And on the EduMatch site, then there's a place where people can just kind of fill out your ideas. It takes you step by step. If you have like a moonshot, like a big goal that that you think is unreachable, but you really think it's necessary. So there's a place on the EduMatch website where you can go fill out a Google form, and it'll take you through the first 6 steps of the engineering design process. And then Autocrat will shoot you back a template with an actionable list of how to get through this idea. So definitely
where is the link to this? Because you're gonna get a million questions for this now.
Okay, absolutely. Yeah, it's on edumatch.org. So let me see. Let me get on there myself and I'll tell you exactly where it is on there. So that would be under the Get Connected page.
Designing with Passion form.
Designing with Passion form. Yep, that's it right there. So, and then
if anyone's actually interested, I'll put that out into the YouTube description link, but I'll tweet it out right away too, because like people are gonna start tweeting. Yeah.
And Sarah, that right away. That's so critical. That I love the moonshot idea, but the step-by-step process, because so often I think there's that gap between the big idea and those steps. So that's awesome. I can't wait to check it out.
Oh, thanks so much. Yeah, I appreciate that. And there's like a folder there too. So once people finish filling it out, if they want to find collaborators who have similar ideas to them, I'm going to try to make an awesome table with that too. But right now it's just like a Google form that people can just kind of, you can filter it and kind of click through to see if anyone else has a category similar to yours.
So this is one question that I really wanted Sarah to talk about. So we kind of talked about it before we got on. I can't remember if I saw Sarah write it somewhere or I was in her session at Miami Device, and she had mentioned that, so you have this person who is like seemingly very comfortable in front of speaking in everybody and doing all this insane stuff, like just awesome, doing this globally like collaborative group. And then she said that how extremely introverted she was. And I was like, what are you talking about? Right. And so can you, I know there's a lot of people that are listening that are a little nervous to share stuff. They feel themselves quite introverted. Can you kind of just talk about, having that type of personality, but you have 40,000 followers on Twitter and you do this global. And so people wouldn't associate that with introverted.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's funny. It's funny how pieces of our personality kind of shape how we interact on social media. For me, I know that face to face, I am very kind of introverted and reserved, or at least that's my natural instincts. But there's always been like part of me that really wanted that connection piece, you know, that and social media was kind of a way to do it in a way that was comfortable. So, and I feel like, you know, we were talking about this a little bit before we went live, but social media has kind of helped me come out of my shell a little bit in terms of interacting and being more comfortable with speaking with other people. Because I mean, when you're behind a screen or behind a device, then it kind of reduces a lot of barriers, you know, like there's not that awkwardness, and you're able to go back and kind of, you know, customize what you want to say until it's correct. But one thing that really kind of struck me one day as I was driving down the street, I don't know if y'all have seen the movie Fight Club.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So for
I know where this is going. I want to see where this is going.
Yeah, so if anyone has not seen this yet, then you might want to cover your ears for the next like 30 seconds. I'm about to spoil like a 20-year-old movie.
Spoiler.
Spoiler alert. But in Fight Club, then you had two characters. You had the main character, and you also had Tyler, I think was Brad Pitt's name, something like that, Tyler. But anyway, so Tyler was like this bad, you know, this bad guy, you know, bad to the bone, Brad Pitt, beating people up, doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And the main character would look up to him and be like, oh, I wish I could be like him. You know, I wish I could be more like him. Well, spoiler, they were actually the same person the whole time. So the thing about that, like, anytime that I start kind of feeling a little or anxious or whatever, then I just kind of project this Sarah the teacher and try to do my best imitation of Sarah the teacher. And I mean, truth be told, whatever fictional alter ego that we may have that can get us through the day, that's who we are. That is who we are. So
I love that, Sarah.
Yeah.
I'm never gonna look at you the same.
Yeah, this is Sarah the teacher right now. So.
But I think, Sarah, what you brought up about giving yourself a voice and sharing in different ways, I think of how often technology has afforded kids in the classroom that same opportunity. When teachers can allow different forms and different ways for kids to interact, all of a sudden you see someone who never would raise their hand or would never engage in that conversation, all of a sudden the most willing to participate in different platforms. Mm-hmm. So giving people a voice in different ways and allowing your personality and allowing you to see that alter ego is really, really cool.
Okay, so I gotta go back to this Fight Club analogy.
Sorry,
I think it's like, I can't believe you went there. That's like amazing.
I had to. I'm sorry.
So, okay, so like we're gonna totally wreck this movie if you've never seen it. But like, I think kind of it's not even just the alter ego. Like the alter ego changes him as well too, right? By the end, right? Like he becomes a different person because of the alter ego.
Exactly.
Like, and that's kind of like, would you say that's actually kind of happened to you? Like,
oh yeah,
your alter ego has changed you as a whole.
I would say so. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's crazy. Like, and I mean, you go through like, you know, you go through phases. It's not like a perfect thing. Like, you know, like all of a sudden you are that magical, I don't even know what the female version of Bradlena Pitt.
Sarah the teacher.
Sarah the teacher. There you go. So it's not like it's always like, you know, that is always a case, you know, this super extroverted persona. But I mean, you know, it's if we start faking like we are that person, then the outside world's never going to know.
I'm just sitting here, just like, oh my god, my mind is blown by that analogy. Like that was like amazing. And all these people are like tweeting about Fight Club now. Yeah, so
great movie.
We're gonna go watch Fight Club and check out EduMatch after this.
Yes.
This is actually like why this was really important for me to get you to talk about. Already, Julie Johnson, she wrote, iMOOC is helping me work on coming out of my shell. Thanks for sharing this at Sarah the Teacher and G Couros for the push. Because I think that people need to hear this. And Katie, I really appreciate you making the connection, talking about how this is very important for our students too. Like, yeah, you give them different avenues. Now, it doesn't mean like being introverted is wrong and we're trying to fix an introvert or something like that. It's just the notion that everyone has something to share, everybody. And we can't just expect everyone to share in the way that works best for us, but like how it helps them share their ideas and connect with other people. And I think that's I really wanted to hit that because I know, like, I remember when you said that, I was like, what are you talking about? Like, cause you're like, you're sharing all these ideas and like very comfortable and talking to like a ton of people. And I was like, okay, this is like messed me up. And now that Fight It Club analogy just like took it to a whole other level.
Well, it's not always the first person that raises their hand or the loudest person who has the best ideas. And if we always assume that, if we always wait for the extroverted people to be the ones talking and sharing ideas, we miss out on so many other people's thoughts and other ways of thinking.
Someone just tweeted, "What happens in IMOOC should stay in IMOOC."
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, now be like Fight Club.
Oh man,
that's awesome.
Great movie.
So we're gonna talk about part 1 of the book, and
perfect segue.
Sarah's actually. I'm dying because I'm just watching how this Twitter conversation has totally changed all of a sudden. So we're gonna talk about part 1 of the book, and Sarah's has agreed to join us. So we're gonna just talk about some of the ideas. So. The first part we're going to talk about is kind of like the definition of innovation that I talk about in the book, and simply saying it's about doing new and better things. And so, what is that like when we say new and better? What does that mean to you? Like when we talk about innovation, we connect it to that notion of doing new and better things. How do you see that in your roles? And Katie and Sarah, please jump in and share whatever whatever that kicks into you for that.
So first, and like for me, this notion of new and better, I think is absolutely critical, because too often, and we've talked about this a lot before, it's technology, flashy, all these new things, and I'm an innovative educator because I'm using technology or I'm the first one to try something new. But if it's not better for kids, and if you don't know your kids and what they need, the innovation is frivolous. And so I think it's really important to think about innovation in the sense of making things better for kids. And there was a post recently, George, that you wrote or someone about my classroom management went down. I didn't have to worry about classroom management as much because I became an innovative teacher. And I think the key point here is not that notion of like engaged because of technology. It's innovative in the sense that looking at new and better ways of really meeting the needs of the kids. So that's a really critical piece that I think we all need to focus on.
Right, absolutely. And just to piggyback on what you're just saying, meeting the needs of the kids, absolutely. I think that's definitely where innovation comes in. When you see that need and you address that need, instead of just waiting for someone else to address the need, you address the need. You help the students address the needs themselves. So I mean, like all of that is just critical when it comes to innovation.
I think one of the things that like I try to get people to wrap their heads around, especially, is if it's not ultimately better, it's not innovation, that it's not leading to something better. And I think that's when you get pushback when like principals try to implement something because the people, the staff or the superintendent, lead something. They don't actually see the better. They only see the change. And so that's like, somebody said this to me and I thought it was really fascinating. They said, teachers are not scared of change. They're scared of spending a lot of time to do something that has no impact. And I think that's one of the reasons why when we're looking at innovation, we're just kind of getting to people to look at when you're looking at things about how they're doing new and better. And when I say new, one of the things I define in there is that can be invention or iterations. It could be a totally brand new idea, or it can be like you taking someone's idea. Like, I'm sure like Sarah, when you're talking about EduMatch, that's like an evolution of some other ideas that, made this, right? And actually led to that. And so there is an innovation there. But it's not the first time people have connected online, right? But you took it and you like tweaked it and you made it your own. And so I think that's a really important aspect, is that people get innovation and invention mixed up. And actually, if an invention leads to something better, it is an innovation, or it can be an iteration. I go to a conference, hear an amazing idea, take that idea, tweak it for my kids. And what I wanted to do is that people seem to always equate it with technology. Like how you utilize technology was innovation, even if it was going to digital textbooks. And I would actually say that if your innovation is digital textbooks and your teaching stays the same, it is actually accelerating bad practice. That technology accelerates everything, including bad practice. And so you can't just simply say, well, look at the innovation we're doing. We're using digital textbooks now. Like, what has it actually led to that's better?
So I want to just jump on that too. One of the things you mentioned, George, was the impact. So when we talk about new and better, you have to understand kind of your goals and think about looking at ways of understanding or assessing impact beyond a traditional test score, looking at different ways of really understanding and assessing, is this better than what we've been doing? And I think that's where we miss the mark a lot of times, is that we're not really checking to see, how do we know this is better? Are we getting feedback? Are we looking at different outcomes other than a traditional measure or something we've always been doing? So we don't always see the impact, or we don't always know if our new idea is making the desired impact we want.
So, okay, and this is not one of the questions, but
off script.
Like when we, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, from both of you. Is there not like an eye test for like if it's better? Like we like if I have a teacher trying something new, do I need a number to show me that it's better? Right? Can they not do, like, what do you think about that? Because I think that a lot of times when we're working with teachers, it's like we always want a number to prove something. But shouldn't there be like an eye test where this is where, you know, the beauty of education is that, you know, these teachers work directly with these children. I think I can kind of tell if something's working with a child.
I think that's kind of where also self-assessment and peer assessment really come into play, and reflection. So, you know, I'm a huge proponent of blogging, of sharing your stories, and I think that a lot of it, you know, needs to come from the teacher, him or herself, to be able to explain how this has helped. Because, you know, for some people it may appear that there's been no change, but to others, and they may, you know, say, whoa, this is a massive change. So being able to reflect and actually see where that change is, I think that's where that comes in.
And just to piggyback on that, Sarah, I think just as you were telling me about earlier about your dissertation and your case study, really looking at kids and progress over time, reflection, self-assessment, those are all really powerful ways of documenting change over time and documenting whether or not something's working. And the reality is nothing's always going to work the first time. Of course, we know that you try something, it works, you tweak it, you do something different. But we fail a lot of the times to document that change and document what we're doing over time. And so we miss those little tweaks, and all of a sudden we think that it's just one thing that made the difference, when really it's a lot of little tweaks over time that really make the impact.
Mm-hmm.
So the next question, you hear a lot in education talking about growth mindset, and Carol Dweck's work, I think, is really crucial. And I would actually contest that it's very important, but it's not far enough. And I think that's kind of why I wrote the book, The Innovator's Mindset. So do you guys want to kind of talk about your thoughts on how the innovator's mindset and the growth mindset are actually connected to one another?
Yeah, so the growth mindset, I mean, we know it's super powerful for kids and for educators to be able to, you know, that notion of not yet, that I'm not there yet, I have to grow, and that I can work over time and do something. I see where the innovator's mindset builds on this, is thinking, I have the power to do this. So yeah, I have to grow my mind, but as someone who has the innovator's mindset, I'm responsible for finding these problems, for making these changes, for doing something differently. And I think that's really powerful. It gives people agency to really think about not only completing the task someone provides for them, but for being the one to make those changes in their own life, in their own education, in their learning.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with what you just said, Katie. I had a half-baked thought kind of going through my brain. I don't really know how to phrase it, but with growth mindset, then definitely, you know, that idea of yet, and you kind of have like this yardstick, and you're like inching along. But when I think of innovator's mindset, then I think like there is no yardstick, like you're creating the yardstick as you go. So to me, that's kind of how they interplay.
I love that.
I think that's really important, is that if we only settle with what we know now, then there is no like what does that mean for us, right? And I think that part of it too, the notion that the growth mindset and the innovators mindset are actually a connection. I think that's a really important aspect for me, is that I always give this example, is that I don't want kids just to be good at math, which is, what the growth mindset is, encouraging, but I want them to be able to do something with the math they have learned. And I think that's a really important connection to it, is that what good does it do for me long term if I actually could just figure out, what already exists. And I guess that's important, obviously, in some ways, but like, what does that lead? And one of the things I talked about recently is the if you saw the Amazon Go stores, they're the stores you swipe, like I think they're starting in Seattle right now, and you actually swipe your phone to go in to them, and it's like a grocery store. You just grab your groceries, take whatever you want, and then you just walk out. And it's like shoplifting. It looks that way, but the reality of it is that everything you have put into your basket or your cart or whatever is actually automatically deducted. And the reason why I bring this up is because there's nobody taking money. And so what I find fascinating about this is that the jobs that can be automated are eventually going to be. And I think that's a big shift. And that's why we really need, people to be creative, but, take these creative ideas and put them into practice. And I think that's where the innovation happens. And I think this is really important, is that we need like a culture of, innovators and creators. And I think that when you're looking at the innovators mindset, getting teachers to understand this is not just a few people. And when we put innovation as to like how I make robots, right? Because that's how a lot of people connect this. It's not that. It's the student in the class that is struggling reading, and everything is not working for that child. Do you just forget the child, or do you take what you know and create a better pathway for that child? And I think that's the innovation. That's part of it too. And I think part of the whole reason of the book is to simplify and to get yourself to see that way, that there are so many educators who have been innovators for years, but they don't see themselves because they might not be good with technology. And that's probably one of the things that irked me the most, is that it was always connected to technology.
So one of the things that this notion of whether it's growth mindset or the innovators mindset, that mindset in general, I think it's really important to understand. And you just brought this up, George, about the teacher being innovative and finding new paths for kids. Too often, and I know Carol Dweck's even written about this, we talk about growth mindset or innovators mindset in saying that it's how we talk, or be innovative, you take risks. We think it's just in the words we say. But the mindset is so often much more reflected in how we act, in what we do. So if a teacher says, take risks, be innovative, or a principal says that, yet their policies and how they expect people to behave don't really reflect that, that's not embodying that mindset, and it's not going to create people who can go on and do better things. Just because you say to kids, you're not there yet, keep trying, but if you call on the first kid to raise their hand, how are you really reflecting a culture that embodies that mindset?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's just something that I think is important to think about.
Yeah.
Well, I think that part of it too is that I would actually say there is, and this might be a little bit controversial, I think there's like there is a problem. One of these big problems in education right now is not coming from teachers, it's coming from leadership. And I'm talking like administrators who, are expecting teachers to do something totally different when everything they do is the same. And the one example that I talk about all the time is you'll have administrators leading a staff meeting, and they'll say, hey, let's talk about, innovative things we can do with our students. So here's a gigantic piece of paper, here's some markers, and write your ideas on this gigantic piece of paper. So the practice of what they're doing looks very similar to what has always been done, but they're asking teachers to do something different. And I think, is there different ways you can actually look at creating and model it within those times what you're doing with your staff for they can have that trickle down effect in schools. Like, you know, this is such a simple example, but it has a profound impact, is the notion of like using Google Forms is not the innovation, but using Google Forms to get, you know, staff when they, you know, like I see a lot of staff still, they check in, they have to write their name down when they walk into a staff meeting or whatever. But even just having like a Google form in the morning and saying like, hey, just check into this, but then asking the question, what do you hope to get out of today? So all of a sudden, as soon as those people walk into the room, you can see what their hopes and aspirations are for, you know, the next 6 hours that you're spending with a professional learning day. And how does that trickle down into the classroom? But that's like, I still, like in 2017, I'm still seeing people like walk in with pencils and have to write their names down to check in. I'm like, oh my God, like, is this legit? Everyone's got a phone. Everyone has access to this stuff that's walking in this room. And then we're like begging, you know, then administrators are begging teachers to be more innovative in their practice. And I see there's a disconnect there.
Yeah.
What a great segue, George. I'm going to segue us into the next question. So, and Sarah, I'm going to ask you this because you work at the district level, and so you get to see a variety of district administrators, a variety of schools and ways they are approaching things. So I'm wondering, this notion of, George talks about the notion of innovation inside the box. So we have constraints, we have things that just that's the policies and procedures, and we have to kind of work within them. So what are you seeing? What are some examples you see in your district or even in your work through EduMatch where people are really innovating inside the box?
That is a great question. Well, I'll relate it back to my experience in the classroom myself, because I would say that my greatest professional growth has come from a time when I was working with leaders that were that gave two things. They gave support and they gave space, support and space. So definitely, you know, when someone comes to the table with strengths, being able to nurture those strengths and to trust members, you know, teachers, staff members, and for us as educators to be able to trust students to work within their strengths to make the best decisions that they possibly can, you know, for the best interest of the learning process. So so for me, when I worked with a leader who gave me the space and the trust to kind of try new things, jump in feet first, not head first, because, you know, head first is dangerous, but jump in feet first and try new things out for the sake of the learning, then that was the most that I grew as an educator. That was like probably my biggest jump. So seeing amazing leaders like that, that's where I see that the innovation within the box can happen when leaders allow for space and for growth and encourage the connections in their staff.
So
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, Sarah. I'm gonna push back a little bit on this, and
okay.
I'm gonna because this was something my deputy superintendent said to me, and it has always stuck with me. And I was talking about like being frustrated, you know, like how come we're not doing this, you know, like why are not all teachers doing some of the stuff that we're doing in our schools, etc. And the thing she said to me is, not everyone is you, and
right.
And so, like, if I have you on my staff, Sarah, I'm giving you support and space. But some people, they need you to be in there a little bit, right? And I actually, like, when I say that, I know this is good, like, and I'm struggling with this, right? Because I know I know that as soon as I actually feel crowded, I start to like wilt. Like, it's hard for me to do this, but some people need, I don't want to say to be like have more micromanaging, but like they need, I guess, maybe more support. Like,
I think support looks different for different people.
Right. I agree with that.
Yeah, because you, yeah, I'm going to give you all the space you want, right? And I think that's because you're proving this to me, but I actually don't, like, some people want the space so they can close the door and just get away with stuff. And like, that might not be a popular thing to say, but it's true. There are people like that too, right?
I totally hear you on that, but just like full transparency, full disclosure, my major in undergrad was not education. I came through alternative certification, and I had an intensive summer preparation, and then all of a sudden I found myself in the classroom. So my journey was a little bit, there was a steep learning curve at first, and I'm wondering how those first few years may have been different with a different approach. It was when I hit when I got to meet that particular leader who used that approach. And I don't know if it was a combination of my experiences to that point that kind of brought me to a point where I was ready for the space and the support. But I don't know. I definitely, what you said, Katie, resonated with me about how support looks different for different people, you know? So I definitely agree with what both of you are saying, but
Katie,
that's what I needed.
Katie, that was like perfect, because I'm like listening to Sarah, and I'm like, of course you, but not. And that's the first thing I thought. Not everyone's you. So what does that look like? And I think that was Katie. You just phrased it perfectly.
Yeah.
Well, and I think too, I mean, George, your point that I love to refer to often, it's like, it's about moving people from their point A to their point B. And so I think of an example, Brad Gustafson, who was on the show last time, shared a great example of a staff day where they had the full day to collaborate. And too often that is standardized. Everyone hears one message, you learn, you hear the typical, we're going to talk about differentiation and we're going to have one presentation for everybody. Where he flipped it and said, we're going to have a morning meeting, we're going to talk about big ideas, and then we're going to have an hour where you have some choice sessions, but then there's accountability at the end, and you can go and work in some different groups, and there was 3 or 4 different ideas. So there's some thinking about innovating inside the box. There's a constraint. We have a day, we have goals that we want to achieve, we're all moving in the same direction, but during the day, there's outlets and different ways that people can interact. But I think the key for that is accountability, because too often I also see teachers collaborate, go and have the day by yourselves, but there are no goals nor accountability. And so a lot of times teachers will tell me, we wasted the day because we didn't really know how to work together. We didn't have goals. So, there's a fine line of how to support people in that process. And again, it's different for a variety of people.
And that actually, like, one of the things you just triggered in me is that one of the things I do in workshops, like, I really focus on the notion of competitive collaboration. I talk about it in the book, is how do you get people both support and pressure one another. And one of the things that I do on some of these professional learning days that I lead, I'll actually ask people to do Twitter videos and do reflections during the break. And I outright say to them, if you don't know how to do it, not my problem, figure it out. And the only rule of you figuring this out is you can't ask me, because I know how to do it. So you can figure it out by going to Google, you can go talk to somebody in the room, you can even join somebody in their talk. But I think one of the things that I actually do to put pressure, and I say, by the way, I'm actually going to have the tweets running so you can see who did it. So there's a pressure there, an accountability that if you don't show up on that wall, everyone is going to kind of know you didn't do it. And like, it's like, you shouldn't be doing that all the time, but I think that sometimes putting people in situations where there's accountability to try this, because some people are like, I'm not doing it. And then they'll see a bunch of other people and they're like, okay, well, now I got to pick it up, because I don't want to be the one who's weak here. I don't want to be the one who's behind. And I think sometimes when, like, I have a lot of people coming up to me and they'll say, I'm doing some really great stuff in my school and I'm really happy with it, but I wish my administrator wouldn't let other people get away with stuff. And and it's like they feel that their ability to do well in that culture is limited because it's not flourishing around them. Do you know what I mean? So eventually they're going to leave or wilt. And I don't know, maybe I'm just ranting here. So
no, but I think that brings me to this, like, our final question, I think, to think about this culture, because we talk a lot about pockets of innovation and people doing things in isolation, or this school culture where not everyone's on the same page can really be frustrating, and it can alienate teachers, either ones who are not moving as fast or ones that are moving too fast. So and this is George and Sarah both, and you're, you know, as you've seen so many examples, what are examples or what are your recommendations for how to promote this culture? This is what people always ask. How do you promote a culture where people are willing to take risks? People want to try new things and they're supported to do that.
Sarah, you go first.
Me first, okay. I believe that definitely that also comes with the leadership. Like, I have never been a principal, I've never been a director of a school, but from what I have seen, from what I've observed, then a lot of it is the tone that the leader will set for his or her building, the openness and being able to take those risks as well. And again, jumping in feet first and not head first, not doing anything too, you know, nothing too risky. Definitely weighing the pros and the cons before making any kind of decision and not throwing, you know, caution out with the wind, but being able to take certain risks that, you know, where you can stand to shoot for the moon, moonshot thinking, and also bringing in teachers and students as collaborators, I would say would also be big.
And I think it's really important to clarify something that Sarah just said, because she's very humble to say this. Even if she's not in a principal position, she's leading. Just so you know, people that are in Sarah's like positions, they are leaders, and there's a difference. And I try to ensure that you have some administrators who are not leaders; they're administrators, right? And I think that from Sarah's position, she leads, and I think like she just deferred it, and that's what actually tons of amazing leaders do all the time. Is like, oh no, that's other people, but it's really like, you know, all the stuff that you're creating is obviously leading by example, and how you support other people is leading by example, right? So make sure, like, we know you're a leader in the work that you're doing. I think that one of the things that I'm very adamant about is modeling the risks, like trying different things. People know you got your back, and this is why I talk about relationships all the time, is because when people feel they're supported and like they're cared for as human beings, they have your support, they're more willing to take risks. And I always talk about the importance of like investments in people. Like the person coming to me and talking about something very personal for like 10 minutes of their life that has nothing to do with school is something I'm going to get back tenfold, because they know that I care about them as a human being. But I think one of the other things that I've been trying to do lately is anytime we talk about the notion of risk, that we define that. And some people, when they equate risk, they see danger, and they think of like almost like physical danger in some people's heads, right? Like, you know, we're gonna like blow up stuff in the school and see what happens, kind of thing, right? Like, we're gonna try this crazy science experiment and like, oh, this is a big risk. And that's not how I see it. I try to define risk as simply moving from a known to a possible, or to an unknown that is possibly better.
Right.
And that's simply what it is that something I'm comfortable with, that I know, to something I don't understand, know, in the pursuit of something better. And I think that when you define risk that way, it actually, I don't know if it makes people more comfortable, because maybe I'm totally off. I think people associate risk with danger.
Right. When you say take a risk, they're like, well, I can't let my kids be the guinea pigs, right? A lot of teachers are like, I have to follow this because I know it's safe and I want to do what's best for kids. I mean, 99.9% of teachers, 100% are in there to do what's right for kids. And taking a risk feels like you're risking their education and that doesn't feel great. One of my good friends would say, there's a reason that teachers get a discount on their car insurance. They're not the riskiest profession, that's as a whole. So we look at, it's really important for leaders to create. And as George pointed out, that's teacher leaders, that's administrators, but for leaders to create that culture where people feel willing to take that risk. And I wrote about it in my blog last week that Caleb Rashad and I spent a great deal of time with him last week, and we talked a lot about this. that the 3 Ps, that, you know, creating a space where people have permission, where people have protection, because they need to know if and when they make a mistake that they have support, that they're not going to get in trouble, and things are going to be okay. And that the removal of policies, so that it's easier for you to try things, and you're not jumping through all these hurdles. So those are really important. When leaders can create the conditions to support teachers in that way, they're much more willing and able to take a risk when it's a collaborative environment and they feel like they're supported to do it.
Yeah, and I think that when you're equating that to moving towards a better, like I can't remember who said this, and I thought it was like really fascinating, and I talk a little bit about it in the book, is that failure is easy to challenge. Success is actually much harder to challenge. And like, we've used the Blockbuster example a million times, right? Blockbuster's a success, and then they stuck with their known and eventually failed. And so, a lot of schools that have students that are doing very well on, whatever tests they're using and all this, a lot of teachers are like, well, they're already doing well. And it's like, but there's always room for growth. And I think that one of the big things I talk about is that I don't need everyone to be at the same point. I just need everyone moving forward. And I think that's really crucial. So one of the things that we're going to do right now is I'm going to ask a couple questions, and there's tons of people that are actually tweeting through the iMOOC hashtag that are watching the video now. So if you have a question, just let us know, because I would love to see Sarah get some questions from you too. She will be participating through the iMOOC Twitter chat on Wednesday, but it's like insanely fast. So hopefully, I can't believe how many people actually tweeted, and thank you for that. But if you have a question, tweet to the hashtag iMOOC right now. And but I'm going to pull one from the spreadsheet, and this is from Matt Arend. His Twitter handle is at Matthew_Arend, AREND. Absolutely awesome guy, great leader, and just always thoughtful of the work that he's doing as a principal in his work. And I'll actually ask you to answer this first, Sarah. He said, what's your response to this? How can the profession regulate a tide of untested approaches? And he said willy-nilly, and this is not his, by the way, this is a question he was posed. So okay. So he's asking, like, how would you respond to this? Willy-nilly adoption of ideas, and this the quote that he says that he heard was, "Unbridled innovation is dangerous and foolish." So how do I think this actually ties in the last question. How do you actually justify people trying things that aren't proven to work?
Well, with innovation, just like how you were saying about the risks, then going from something known to an unknown that could be better, then definitely that resonated with me. That was very powerful. But I also feel that that when we remain stagnant, then that's pretty much death. I mean, for lack of a better term, because if you don't change and adapt, then that's when the process of dying starts, because the time is going to be moving. Time is constantly moving and changing. So we have to try these new ideas. We have to find these needs and seek ways to address them. And that is how we will continue to thrive. And of course, after we test things, we try new things, definitely sharing what we have learned with the community. And then somewhere, some way, someone will see that, and perhaps wherever we fell short, then they can compensate for that by trying something different. So that's where the power of definitely sharing comes in as well.
I love that, Sarah. And I just want to kind of say it again, that the notion of sharing is so important. So often teachers think, the best teachers have always been innovative. They're always trying new things to meet the needs of their kids. But too often we keep it in our classrooms and we don't share it. We hide it, and then we go and say, yeah, I'm on the pacing guide, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, but we're hiding our innovation. And I think we need to reframe that to say, here's what I notice my kids need, and here's what I'm doing. Help me think of a better way to do it. Or here's some problems I'm running up against. Because if we are not continually revising and innovating in the classroom, we are going to be dying. And I think to George's point earlier about what's happening with Amazon, what's happening with artificial intelligence. I mean, the world is moving so fast. We cannot keep, you know, following along the textbook while the world is going on at 1,000,000 miles an hour, if we want to think about what's meeting the needs of kids.
So here's a couple things, and this is like from a business standpoint. I was listening to like I started investing in stocks recently, and it's like, where are you going with this? One of the things that Warren Buffett, who is known as like basically the best investor in the world, he said, you don't buy stocks, you buy the company. And it was a really fascinating way to look at it, because, like, you know, you just go buy stocks of a company, blah, blah, blah. But he said you buy the company. And so when I actually started looking at, like, what companies would I actually want to own, all the companies that I actually bought stocks in were ones that I know continuously progress over time and always do new and better things. Like, well, like what they were doing 20 years ago is significantly different from what they're doing now, because I feel more comfortable that that will grow over time. Like if you were to buy a stock, and I don't know if that makes any sense, but I thought it was really fascinating, because it actually changed the way that I looked at buying stocks, because I'm not comfortable buying a stagnant, you know, company, right? Like Kodak, I think, I don't even know if Kodak exists anymore, to be honest with you. And so they changed too late. And I think Seth Godin's quote is that innovation never fails because it comes too early. It only fails when it comes too late. And I thought that was a really fascinating thing. But the other thing that I want to comment on this that I find really interesting is that there is no best practice that we know is best practice that wasn't an innovation at some point. Mm-hmm. Like, how do we even get to the point where someone knows, oh, this totally works? Like PLCs, like, you know, have done a lot of good, you know, not necessarily in all cases, because I don't think it's a bad idea. I think there's bad implementation, but that's not something that's been around forever. Somebody said, hey, let's try this. And I just find that really fascinating. Is like we're scared to, like, we should never be scared to be a generation of educators that try to do something better in pursuit of better opportunities for our kids. And I don't know, maybe that's
no. Well, George, and I think to make some tangential connection to the Warren Buffett comment, that all those programs and policies, PLCs, you can't take an idea and just plop it into a school and it's going to work. It has to be part of a culture. You have to make things fit for the context. And I think that's part of the innovation, is taking the idea and really making it work, and not just assuming that, like, this program worked in some far off land or far off school and it's going to work for us. It never does. No matter what the research says, you have to take something and think about the needs of the users in the context.
Okay, I have a question from Julie Johnson, and it's for Sarah. This is specifically for Sarah in your role right now. What is the best way you support teachers innovating their teaching?
That would, let me see, the best way that I would support teachers innovating their teaching, is that what you said?
Yeah, teaching and learning.
Definitely. I hate to sound like a broken record, but I always want to say share, because I feel like we learn so much from one another, and just like creating spaces where people can speak to one another and, you know, just kind of refine their ideas, because the more you share an idea, the more you refine it. It's kind of like a diamond, and just polishing it, you know, the more feedback that you can get on a particular idea. So like one thing that we do is EdCamp Voice on Voxer. So in there, then there's actually a chat that is just wrapping up right now, the restorative justice chat that started off in EdCamp Voice on Voxer. And just with people sharing so many ideas in that group, it's just been like a community of practice that has just kind of emerged from there. So definitely, I would say encouraging teachers to share in whatever way possible. So through EdCamps, through blogging, through various social media platforms.
And Katie, I'll give you the last word on this question, and then we're gonna wrap it up.
So the best way to support teachers, I agree, share. bringing people together, I, always go back to helping them understand their goals. What is it that their kids need? Helps teachers really think about new and better practices, and really documenting. I love action research, or any way that teachers can think of a problem that they're trying to solve, and then they have that agency to think about what they need to do. It's always way more effective than coming in and telling teachers what they need to implement, but also being there to support and push, because it's always important to look outside your own own thinking and get better resources, but ultimately leaving the problem and the solutions to the teacher.
And Julie Johnson actually just said a thank you to you, Sarah, for sharing that idea. So one of the fascinating, this is going to sound super weird, but one of the fascinating things about watching this Twitter chat while having this conversation is totally what Sarah talked about, the notion of share, share, share. And what's fascinating is sometimes someone will tweet something that I said, I'm like, oh, that was actually a really good point. Okay, it's kind of and I will, it would have totally, so like, I'm like favoriting, I'm like, ooh, I'm so using that later. And I like, but it always, like, it sparks from being in the space to have the conversation in the first place, but other people like sharing ideas, connecting, talking about what they're doing. And I think it just, like, I just loved what you said, like share, share, share. And I actually think that sometimes being a broken record and saying the same things over and over again is actually extremely important, because it stresses how important they are to what they're doing. So Sarah, I really want to thank you, because I think the stuff that you're doing is absolutely amazing. And one of the things that really connected me with Sarah is how hard she works. Like, she is one of the hardest working people. And I actually wrote, this is something I wrote in a blog today. It's going to be posted in a couple of days, is that hard work plus consistency times time equals not success, but results. And success is totally a personal thing. But when I say results, it means growth. And so I really appreciate that, because like, you spending your time with us tonight, even though you're in the middle of your dissertation, you're doing all these other things outside of your job. I really want to thank you, because I think a lot of people need to hear from your wisdom.
Oh, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to be here tonight and to chat with the both of you, as well as everyone who's watching and tweeting. I'm watching the tweets go by as well. So this is awesome. Thank you all so much.
And Katie, any last words?
I just want to say again, thank you to Sarah. You can such a genuine person, and your notion of sharing has created a community and a movement that allows people to do just that. And we're excited to really use that. And thank you for being part of this community. And thank you to the rest of the iMoot community. Look forward to seeing you at the Twitter chat on Wednesday night, and look forward to reading your blogs.
Awesome. And keep blogging, keep sharing your ideas, continue to go do amazing things. The community is actually just growing. So thanks for taking your time on a Sunday night to spend with us. I hope you're all better for this. I know I'm better for connecting with these two awesome people and all of you. So I look forward to seeing you on Wednesday night. And thanks for your time.
Good night.
Thank you.